An alien SOS rang through the void. Fleets answered Part 1. The signal was weak. It was so weak that Lieutenant almost missed it completely. She sat at her station on the Galactic Communications Hub, a massive space station that floated near a dying red star. Every day, millions of messages passed through this place. Most of them were normal: trade agreements, ship schedules, boring government reports. But this signal was different. Leaned forward in her chair. Her fingers moved across the controls as she tried to clean up the sound. The message was buried under layers of cosmic noise. Stars made noise when they died. This old red giant was screaming its last breath into the void, and the sound covered everything else. "Come on," whispered. "What are you trying to say?" The computer worked for 3 full minutes. Then the message became clear. It was a voice. The voice was singing, but not a happy song. It was a cry for help, translated through universal language systems. The words made blood turn cold. "Please, anyone, they are killing us. We cannot fight. We have never known how to fight. Our children are dying. Our cities are burning. Please, if anyone can hear this, please help us. We are dying." His hands were shaking as she saved the message. She checked the source. The signal came from a planet called Prime. It was 12 hours away at maximum speed. She ran. Admiral was 52 years old. She had gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. She commanded the United Earth Defense Fleet's Rapid Response Division. 17 warships, 3,000 sailors. The best humanity had to offer. When Lieutenant burst into her office, was drinking tea and reading casualty reports from last month's border skirmish. She looked up with calm eyes. "Lieutenant, you're supposed to knock." "Admiral, I'm sorry, but you need to hear this now." Played the message. The room was silent when it ended. Admiral set down her tea. Her face showed nothing, but her jaw was tight. She said quietly, "I've read about them. They make beautiful art. Music that can make grown soldiers cry. They've never had a single war in their entire history." "No, Admiral. They don't even have a word for murder in their language." "Who is attacking them?" Swallowed hard, the Dominion. That name hung in the air like poison. There were monsters. They didn't conquer planets for land or resources. They conquered planets for bodies. They used other species as biological material, fuel for their horrible machines, food for their soldiers, raw ingredients for their weapons. They would be harvested like crops. Admiral stood and walked to her window. Outside, the red star burned slowly. Ships moved in the distance. Her ships, her people. "How long do they have?" "Based on the signal's timestamp and standard invasion patterns, maybe 18 hours, 20 at most. And we're the closest fleet that could respond in time." "Yes, Admiral." Nodded slowly. "Get me a connection to the Galactic Council." The council meeting happened fast. 12 alien faces appeared on screens around the room. They represented the major powers of known space. They were old civilizations, smart civilizations, safe civilizations. None of them wanted to help. "They have no strategic value," said the representative. His gray skin looked like stone. "They produce nothing we need. They control no important territory. Helping them would only anger The Dominion has 47 vessels in that system," added the delegate. Her 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "You have 17. The mathematics are clear, Admiral. This would be suicide." "Humanity is young to galactic politics," another voice said. Couldn't tell which species spoke. "You have not learned yet that survival requires selective compassion." Admiral listened to all of them. She let them talk. She let them explain why saving innocent lives was a bad investment. When they finished, she spoke. "You're right, the math is bad. They can't give us anything. They will be angry. We might lose ships. We might lose people." She paused. "But there's something you don't understand about humans." "Enlighten us," they said. His voice sounded bored. We don't answer distress calls because it's smart. We don't save people because they're useful. We answer because someone is dying. We answer because we can help. We answer because that's what we are." She stood up. "My fleet moves in 1 hour, with or without your support." The council members looked at each other. Their expressions showed confusion. This human behavior did not match their models. It did not make sense. "This is madness," the delegate said. "No," Admiral replied. "This is humanity." She ended the connection. Captain Du was in the mess hall when the order came through. He was 34 years old, with a calm face and steady hands. He commanded the heavy cruiser Indomitable, the toughest ship in the fleet. The message was simple: all ships prepare for emergency jump. Destination Prime. Mission Rescue. Put down his food and walk to the bridge. His crew was already moving. They knew something was happening. They could feel it in the air. "Captain on deck," someone called. "Status report," said as he took his chair. "All systems ready, sir. We can jump on your command." Looked at his crew. Young faces, old faces, scared faces, brave faces. They didn't know what they were flying into. They only knew that someone needed help. "Listen carefully," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the bridge. "We're going to save people today. It won't be easy. Some of us might not come back. But somewhere out there, children are dying because no one else will help them. I need to know that you're with me." Silence, then one by one his crew answered. "With you, sir." "Always, Captain." "Let's go get them." Smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "All hands prepare for jump." Across the fleet, 17 ships powered up their engines. Admiral stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the stars stretch as the ships prepared to move faster than light. "Jump in 30 seconds, her navigator announced. "Send one message to Prime," ordered. "Tell them hold on, we're coming." The fleet jumped. Across the galaxy, alien observers watched in confusion. Their sensors tracked 17 human vessels breaking formation and racing towards certain death. They tried to understand why. The computers calculated and calculated, but the answer never made sense. The humans were going to die for strangers. It was impossible to understand. But the humans didn't care about being understood. They only cared about reaching the end time, because somewhere in the void, a song of despair was playing, and always answered. An alien SOS rang through the void. Fleets answered Part 2. Prime was burning. From orbit, the planet looked like a jewel that someone had cracked with a hammer. The surface was covered with floating crystal cities, beautiful structures that had taken thousands of years to build. Now those cities were falling from the sky. Fire spread across the gentle blue oceans. Smoke covered the land like a funeral shroud. Elder stood on the highest tower of the capital city. She was old, even by standards. Her skin was pale silver, and her large, dark eyes had seen 200 years of peace. Now they watched her world die. "Elder," a young voice called from behind her. "The Western Shield generator has failed. The city has fallen." Did not turn around. How many? 300,000, all gone. The number meant nothing anymore. Numbers had stopped meaning anything days ago. First it was hundreds, then thousands, then millions. Now it was just everyone. Everyone was dying. "Prepare the population for the final ceremony," said. Her voice was steady. "We will face our end with dignity, as our ancestors taught us." "Yes, Elder." The young messenger left, continued to watch the sky. Warships moved slowly through the clouds. They were taking their time. They enjoyed this. To them, they were not people. They were meat, resources, things to be collected and processed. They had no weapons. They had never built weapons. In their entire history, spanning 50,000 years, they had never killed another thinking being. They did not know how. Their minds simply could not grasp the concept of organized violence. This was their gift. This was also their death. Below the tower in a small archive room, young Keeper was crying. She was young, only 30 years old in time. Her job was to protect and organize the ancient records of her people. Beautiful poetry, stunning artwork, songs that told the story of 50,000 years of peace. All of it would be gone soon. Had done something forbidden. 6 days ago, when the first appeared, she had sent a message into space, a distress call, a cry for help. This was against everything her people believed. They did not ask outsiders for help. They did not involve other species in their problems. It was considered shameful. But had done it anyway. She had screamed into the void, hoping someone would hear. No one had answered. The door to her room opened. Elder walked in slowly. Fell to her knees. "Elder, I must confess something. I broke the sacred laws. I sent a signal asking for outside help. I have brought shame upon our people in their final hours." She waited for anger, for disappointment, for punishment. Instead, knelt down and lifted its face with gentle hands. "You did what your heart told you to do. There is no shame in wanting to live. There is no shame in hope." The elder smiled sadly. "I wish someone had answered." "So do I," whispered. Above them, the sky continued to burn. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the harvest with satisfaction. He was massive, even for a. His body was covered with thick gray plates of natural armor. His 4 arms crossed over his chest as he observed the operation. "How many specimens collected?" he asked. 2 million so far, Commander. The processing ships are working at full capacity." "Good, and the resistance?" His officer made a sound that might have been laughter. "There is no resistance, Commander. They don't even run. They just stand there and wait for death. They sing songs as we take them." Shook his head. What a pathetic species. They had built beautiful cities. They had created stunning art. But they had forgotten the most basic rule of the universe. Only the strong survive. "Continue the operation. I want this planet stripped bare within 48 hours. "Yes, Commander. There is one other thing." "What?" "We're detecting ships entering the system. 17 vessels. They're broadcasting identification signals. They claim to be from Earth." Searched his memory. Earth. The small blue planet that produced those strange bipedal creatures. Humans, they called themselves. Young species. Barely a century in space. 17 ships against 47, he laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. "What are they doing?" "They're broadcasting a message on all frequencies, Commander. They say we should stand down or be destroyed." For a moment was silent. Then he laughed again, louder this time. "These humans are either very brave or very stupid. Either way, they will make excellent specimens. Change course. Let's teach these what happens when they interfere with business." The fleet began to move. Admiral studied the tactical display in silence. The numbers were bad, worse than bad. 47 enemy ships, most of them larger than anything in her fleet. Her 17 vessels looked like toys in comparison. "Admiral," her tactical officer said carefully, "the enemy is changing formation. They're moving to intercept us." "Good, that means they're not attacking the planet." "With respect, Admiral, they're going to destroy us." Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had already made peace with death. "Maybe, but we're going to hurt them first." She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral. You know why we're here. You know what we're facing. I won't lie to you. This will be the hardest fight of our lives. Some of us won't survive. But down on that planet, millions of innocent people are dying. They called for help. We answered. That's what humans do. That's what we've always done. Now let's show these what are made of." She closed the channel and turned to her navigator. "Take us in. Maximum speed. Don't slow down." "Admiral, you want us to charge directly at them." "That's exactly what I want." Captain stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the enemy fleet grow larger on his screens. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. "Captain," his weapons officer called, "the ships are forming a defensive line. They expect us to stop at range and exchange fire." "Then we won't stop." His voice was calm. "We'll go straight through them, aim for their command ships, hit them hard and fast. They've never fought humans before. They don't know what we can do." "Yes, sir." On Prime, Elder received a strange report. Ships were coming, not ships, different ships. Ships painted with blue and white markings. Ships that were attacking the fleet. She rushed to the observation tower with beside her. They watched the sky together. Far above, tiny points of light were moving fast. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Something was happening, something impossible. "Who are they?" asked. Checked her data pad with shaking hands. "The ships are broadcasting identification. They're from a planet called Earth. The species calls themselves humans." "Humans? I've never heard of them." "They're new to space. They come from a planet with high gravity, dangerous weather, and hostile life forms. They're classified as." Watched the battle in the sky. The small human ships were charging directly into the formation. It was suicide. It was madness. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would they come to die for us?" Had no answer. She could not understand it either. No species in the galaxy helped strangers like this. It made no sense. It went against all logic. But the humans kept coming anyway. Up in space, Admiral gave the final order. "All ships weapons free. Show them what we're made of." The battle for Prime had begun. An alien SOS rang through the void. Fleets answered Part 3. The first ship exploded before its crew understood what was happening. Captain watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as his weapons tore through enemy shields. They had expected the humans to fight at distance. They had expected careful, measured exchanges of fire. Instead, the human fleet came in fast and close, so close that the long-range weapons became useless. "Forward batteries fire at will," ordered, targeting their engine sections. "Take out their mobility first." The Indomitable shook as enemy fire struck the hull. Warning lights flashed across every console, but the ship kept moving. Human warships were built different from other vessels in the galaxy. They were not elegant. They were not beautiful. They were built to take damage and keep fighting. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Chief Engineer No Sung-min reported from his station. "Sealing now. We can handle it." "How bad?" asked. "Bad enough to kill most species. We're fine." That was the thing about their ships matched their bodies. Tough, stubborn, almost impossible to stop. Across the battle, Pilot Officer I.M. Hana led her fighter squadron between the massive vessels. Her small craft moved in patterns that the enemy couldn't track. Human pilots could handle gravitational forces that would crush other species. They could turn and spin and dive in ways that seemed impossible. "Watch your 6, Dagger 3, Hana called to one of her pilots. "Enemy fighters coming up behind you." "I see them lead, breaking left." The fighters tried to follow. They couldn't. Humans were faster. Humans were more flexible. Humans had evolved on a planet that killed the weak and slow. Hana pushed her craft into a tight spiral, came up behind 3 enemy fighters, and destroyed them in quick succession. Her hands moved automatically. Years of training had made this as natural as breathing. "4 more down," she reported, moving to support the Indomitable. On the bridge of his flagship, Commander was beginning to feel something he had not felt in decades: fear. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 8 destroyed, Commander. 4 more heavily damaged." 8 against 17 smaller vessels. That's impossible. But it was happening. The humans were not fighting the way any species fought. They were not trying to win through superior firepower or clever tactics. They were simply absorbing damage that would destroy other ships and continuing to attack. "They're insane," his first officer said. "Look at them. Their ships are burning and they're still coming." watched the human flagship charge directly toward his position. Its shields were failing. Sections of its hull were exposed. Fire burned along its length. Any sane captain would retreat. The human ship fired its main weapons at point-blank range. The blast shook the vessel from bow to stern. Systems failed. Crew members died. For the first time in his long career, realized he might not survive this battle. All ships concentrate fire on the human flagship, he ordered. Destroy it. Admiral felt her ship shake again as weapons struck the hull. Blood ran down her forehead from a cut she didn't remember getting. Around her, crew members worked through injuries that would hospitalize civilians for months. "Status report," she called out. "Main shields are gone, Admiral. We're running on backup power. Engine 3 is offline. Weapons systems at 60%. And the enemy? We've destroyed 12 of their ships. 8 more are heavily damaged. They're starting to pull back." Smiled grimly. "They're not used to prey that fights back." Medical Officer Ho worked in the medical bay below decks. The room was filled with wounded sailors. Burns, broken bones, shrapnel wounds. On any other day, Ho would have called for emergency evacuation. Today, he simply treated what he could and moved to the next patient. "You're going to be fine," he told a young woman with a deep cut on her arm. "Just need to stop the bleeding." "Sir, I can still fight," she said. Her face was pale, but her eyes were determined. "I know you can. That's why I'm patching you up fast." Humans healed quickly. Their blood clotted fast. Their bodies fought infection with fierce efficiency. These traits had evolved on Earth, where every day was a battle for survival. Now, in the depths of space, those same traits kept them alive against impossible odds. On the indomitable chief engineer, No Sung-min performed miracles. "Reroute power from Section 12 to the forward shields," he ordered his team. "Section 12 doesn't exist anymore anyway." "Sir, that's not how the systems are designed to work." "I don't care how they're designed. Make it work." They made it work. Engineers ran through corridors filled with smoke and sparks. They welded broken pipes with bare hands. They connected systems that were never meant to be connected. They kept the ship fighting through damage that should have been fatal. Captain watched his crew with pride. These were humans, his humans. They didn't know how to give up. "Captain," his tactical officer reported, "the flagship is turning to engage us directly." "Good, take us straight at them." "Sir, we're barely holding together." "I know, take us in anyway." The Indomitable surged forward. Its engine screamed. Its hull groaned, but it kept moving, driving toward the heart of the fleet. Commander saw the damaged human cruiser coming toward him. For a moment he almost respected these creatures. They were clearly dying. Their ship was falling apart around them, and still they attacked. "What kind of species is this?" he muttered. His question was answered moments later when Admiral's flagship appeared behind him. While he had been focused on the Indomitable, she had circled around the battle. Now she was in position. "Commander, the human flagship is targeting our bridge." Evasive. Too late. The blast from the human flagship struck command center directly. The ship broke apart in a massive explosion. The commander who had destroyed 100 worlds died in an instant, killed by a species he had dismissed as unimportant. With their command ship gone, the fleet fell into chaos. Their coordination collapsed. Their formations scattered. The surviving ships began to flee. Admiral opened a channel to all frequencies. "This is the United Earth Defense Fleet to all vessels. Surrender now or be destroyed. There will be no third warning." 10 ships surrendered. 14 fled into deep space. The rest were already debris. The Battle of Prime was over. The humans had won. But the cost was terrible. 4 human ships were destroyed completely. 8 more were badly damaged. 214 sailors were dead. Hundreds more were wounded. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain sat in his chair and closed his eyes. His ship was barely functional. His crew was exhausted. His friends were gone. But below them, Prime was safe. Pilot Officer Ayamhana flew her damaged fighter back to the Indomitable. Her squadron had lost 6 pilots. Good pilots, friends. She would remember their faces forever. In the medical bay, Officer Ho finally allowed himself to sit down. His hands were shaking. He had saved many lives today. He had lost many more. Admiral stood on her broken bridge and looked down at the planet they had saved. The shields had failed during the battle, but instead of weapons, they would see human ships. Protectors where killers should have been. "Send a message to the planet," she ordered. Tell them it's safe now. Tell them we're here to help." Below on Prime, Elder watched the sky. The explosions had stopped. The ships were gone. In their place, damaged human vessels took position around the planet. Stood beside her, tears streaming down her silver face. "They came," she whispered. "They actually came." Nodded slowly. She did not understand these humans. She did not understand why they had risked everything for strangers, but she knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had changed forever. An alien SOS rang through the void. Fleets answered Part 4. The first human shuttle landed on Prime 12 hours after the battle ended. Sergeant Major Park Bai was the first to step onto alien soil. She was 40 years old, with a hard face and eyes that had seen combat on 4 different worlds. She led a team of 50 soldiers and medics. The who met them at the landing zone looked terrified. They had never seen humans before. All they knew was that these creatures came from a planet so dangerous that simply surviving there required constant violence. Park raised her hands slowly, showing they were empty. "We're here to help," she said. Her voice was soft, softer than her face suggested. "We brought food, water, and medical supplies. Please show us where the wounded are." Elder stepped forward. She moved carefully, as if approaching a wild animal that might attack at any moment. You came from the sky. You destroyed the—" "Yes." "Why?" Park considered the question. It seemed strange that anyone would ask. To her, the answer was obvious. "Because you needed help." Stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "Follow me. There are many wounded." The next several days became a blur of activity. Human relief teams spread across the damaged planet. They set up field hospitals. They distributed food. They searched through rubble for survivors. They did everything they could to ease the suffering of a species they had never met before. Private First Class Shin Woo-jin was 21 years old. This was his first deployment. He had trained for combat, prepared himself for battle. He had not prepared himself for this. The city had been beautiful once. Now it was ruins. Crystal towers lay shattered across the ground. Bodies were everywhere. Bodies, adults and children. They had died where they stood, too gentle to even run from their killers. Woo Jin worked with a rescue team, digging through the wreckage for survivors. His hands were torn and bleeding. The crystal fragments cut through his gloves like glass, but he didn't stop. "Here," someone called. "I hear something." The team rushed over. Under a collapsed wall, they found a small group of survivors, 3 adults and 2 children. They were barely alive. Woo Jin helped pull them free. One of the children, a small girl with silver skin and huge dark eyes, looked up at him. She was shaking. "Are you the monsters?" she asked. Her voice was tiny. Woo Jin didn't understand at first. Then he realized. The only outsiders they had ever seen were to this child, all aliens were killers. He knelt down so his face was level with hers. "No, we're humans. We came to help you." "Help?" "Yes, you're safe now, I promise." The girl stared at him for a long time. Then slowly, she reached out and touched his face. Her fingers traced the lines of his features, so different from her own kind. "You're warm," she said, "like a star." Woo Jin smiled, though his heart was breaking. "We're going to get you somewhere safe, okay? Can you walk?" She nodded. He picked her up anyway. She weighed almost nothing. Sergeant Major Park coordinated the rescue operations from a central command post. She hadn't slept in 40 hours. Her eyes burned. Her body ached. But there was too much work to do. "Ma'am, you should rest," one of her officers said. "You're going to collapse." "I'll rest when everyone is safe." "That could take weeks." "Then I'll sleep in 3 weeks." Officials offered her comfortable quarters. She refused. She slept on the ground beside her troops when she slept at all. She ate the same rations they ate. She worked as hard as any of them. They watched her with wonder. They had never seen anyone push their body so hard. On their world, rest was sacred. Taking care of yourself was considered the highest virtue. These humans seemed to operate under different rules entirely. Healer was a medical specialist. She had spent 60 years studying biology. Now she was learning about human biology, and it horrified her. "Your bones are dense like metal," she said to one of the human soldiers she was examining. "Your muscles are coiled like springs, and your blood, it clots so quickly. Your bodies are designed for damage." The soldier shrugged. "We evolved on a hard world. You adapt or you die." "This is not adaptation. This is controlled violence built into flesh." "Maybe, but it also means we can help you longer. We can work harder. We can lift heavier things. We can survive conditions that would kill you." Looked at the soldier's hands. They were calloused, covered with fresh cuts from the rescue work. Any with such injuries would be in deep shock. This human barely noticed. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "Everything hurts all the time. We're used to it." She had no response to that. Captain walked through the ruins of a city. His ship was still in orbit, undergoing repairs. He had come down to the surface to see the people they had saved. Elder found him sitting on a fallen crystal pillar, staring at the destruction. "Captain," she said, "I have been wanting to speak with you." Looked up. "Elder, how can I help?" Sat beside him. Her movements were graceful despite her age. "I want to understand. Your admiral said you came because we called for help, but that cannot be the only reason. No species in the galaxy does what you did. There must be something else." Thought about the question for a long time. "On Earth," he said finally, "we have a long history of terrible things. Wars, genocides, cruelty beyond imagination. We've done awful things to each other for thousands of years." Tilted her head. "Then why would you risk everything for strangers?" "Because we know what happens when nobody helps. We've seen it. We've lived it. We've been both the victims and the villains." He paused. I think we came here because we want to be better than our history. We want to prove that all that suffering taught us something." Was silent for a long moment. Then she reached out and placed her hand on his arm. Her touch was light, like a breeze. "Your species is very strange, Captain. You are built for violence, yet you choose mercy. You come from a world of death, yet you bring life. I do not fully understand you, but I think the galaxy is better for having you in it." Smiled sadly. "I hope so." That night, Private Shin Woo-jin sat alone on a hill overlooking the damaged city. He was crying. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears rolling down his face. He was thinking about all the people they couldn't save, all the bodies they had found, all the children who would never grow up. Someone sat down beside him. It was young Keeper. "You are leaking," she said. "Is this normal for humans?" Woo-jin wiped his face. "It's called crying. We do it when we're sad." "You are sad because of the dead ones." "Yes." Was quiet for a moment. "I do not fully understand your people. You fought and died for us. Now you weep for those you could not save. Do all humans feel this deeply?" "I think so. Maybe that's why we came, because we can't stand to see others suffer and do nothing." Nodded slowly. She didn't understand human tears. She didn't understand human violence. But sitting beside this young soldier who had traveled across the stars to save strangers, she felt something new, something warm. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for coming, for caring, for crying." Wu Jin didn't reply. He just sat there with his alien friend, watching the stars come out over a world that had almost died. Tomorrow there would be more work, more rescues, more pain, but tonight there was peace. And that was enough. An alien SOS rang through the void. Fleets answered. Part 5. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Prime. The planet was healing. Human engineers worked alongside builders to reconstruct the fallen cities. Crystal towers rose again from the ruins. Gardens bloomed in places that had been ash and rubble. Life was returning. But the biggest changes were not on Prime. They were happening across the entire galaxy. The Dominion sent diplomats instead of warships. For the first time in their brutal history, they wanted to talk rather than take. Their representatives met with human officials in a neutral station far from any planet. "We do not understand you," the ambassador said. He was smaller than Commander had been, but his eyes were just as cold. "You risked your fleet for a species with no value. You lost ships. You lost soldiers. You gained nothing." Admiral represented humanity at the meeting. She looked older than she had 6 months ago. The battle had taken something from her, but her eyes were still sharp. "We gained friends," she said simply. "Friends that cannot help you in any way. They have no military, no resources, no strategic position. And yet they are our friends. That's all that matters." The ambassador stared at her for a long time. He was trying to find the trick, the hidden strategy, the secret advantage. He couldn't find it because there wasn't one. "You are dangerous," he said finally. "Not because of your weapons, because we cannot predict you. We cannot calculate your actions. A species that will die for strangers is a species we cannot understand." "Good. Maybe it's time you learned that some things can't be calculated." The meeting ended with a peace agreement. They would not attack humanity or its allies. In return, humanity would not hunt them. It was not friendship. It was fear. But fear was better than war. On Prime, Elder prepared to address the Galactic Council. She had never spoken to this body before. They had always been too small, too weak, too unimportant to merit attention. Now, every species in the galaxy wanted to hear what she had to say. "6 months ago, my world was dying," she began. Her voice was calm and clear. "They came to harvest us like crops. We had no weapons, no defenders, no hope. We called out for help knowing that no one would answer." She paused and looked around the chamber. 12 species watched her, some with curiosity, some with skepticism, some with hope. But someone did answer. 17 human ships crossed the galaxy to save strangers. 214 humans died for people they had never met. They asked for nothing in return. They expected no reward. The representative shifted uncomfortably. He had been one of those who recommended against helping the. "I stand before you today to announce that the people will formally ally with Earth. Not for protection, though we welcome it. Not for trade, though we offer it. We ally with humanity because they showed us something we had forgotten existed." "And what is that?" the delegate asked. Smiled. It was a gentle smile, full of warmth and wonder. "Hope, pure, unreasonable, illogical hope. The humans came because they could. They saved us because we needed saving. They proved that the galaxy does not have to be ruled by cold calculations and careful advantages." She let her words sink in before continuing. "They have nothing to offer humanity but our art, our music, and our friendship. They accept it anyway. I invite every species here to consider what that means. Consider what the galaxy could be if more of us answered when strangers called for help." The chamber was silent. Across the galaxy, other species were watching. Species that had been ignored by the great powers. Species that had been conquered and abandoned. Species that had lost hope long ago. They all heard the same message: the humans would come if you called. In the months that followed, 12 more species requested alliance with Earth, not for military protection, not for economic benefit. They joined because they wanted to be part of something different, something better. Admiral retired from active duty. Her fleet commanders threw a ceremony. They gave her medals and made speeches. She accepted everything with quiet grace. Afterward, a young officer approached her. "Admiral, the Academy has asked if you would be willing to train the next generation. They need someone to teach them what it means to be a fleet commander." Considered this for a moment. She was tired, her bones ached, she had earned her rest. But somewhere out there, future officers were learning, future admirals were growing, future battles were waiting. "Tell them I accept," she said. "Someone has to teach them that strength without mercy is just brutality. Maybe I can help them understand." Captain received a promotion to admiral. He didn't want it. He requested to remain on border patrol where he could respond to emergencies quickly. "Why?" his superior asked. "You've earned a desk job, you've earned safety." Thought about the girl that Private Shin had carried from the ruins. He thought about Elder's words. He thought about all the species out there who might need help someday. Because out there, someone might be calling right now, and I want to be the one who answers. His request was granted. Private Shin Woojin transferred to humanitarian operations. He never fired his weapon again in his military career. Instead, he became one of the most respected relief coordinators in the fleet. When disasters struck, when colonies collapsed, when species needed help, Woojin was there. "Why do you do this?" a journalist asked him once. "You were a combat soldier. You could have had glory. Instead, you dig through rubble and hand out food packets." Woojin thought about a silver-skinned girl who had called him warm like a star. "Glory is for stories," he said. "Helping people is real. I'd rather be real." Pilot officer I am Hana stayed in combat duty. She knew the peace wouldn't last forever. Somewhere out there, another threat was growing. Another enemy was preparing. When the time came, she would be ready. But she also visited Prime every year. She walked through the rebuilt cities. She listened to music. She watched children play in gardens that had been battlefields. "This is why we fight," she told her squadron. "Not for medals, not for fame, for moments like this, for gardens growing where there used to be graves." Young Keeper spent 3 years writing the history of First Contact. She interviewed every human she could find. She recorded their stories, their fears, their hopes. She tried to understand why they had come. She titled her book, "The Day They Came Running." The final chapter described what she had learned about humanity. She wrote about their strange bodies, built for violence but used for kindness. She wrote about their tears, which flowed for strangers as easily as for family. She wrote about their stubborn, impossible, beautiful belief that everyone deserved saving. The book became required reading across the galaxy. Species that had never met a human learned about them through words. Many of them began to wonder if they, too, could be like the. Years later, a new distress signal came through the Galactic Communications Hub. A distant colony was under attack by pirates. They had no military, no defenders, no hope. A young communications officer picked up the signal. She was fresh out of the academy, barely 20 years old. She had grown up hearing stories about Prime, about Admiral, about the humans who answered when no one else would. She didn't hesitate. She forwarded the message up the chain. Within the hour, ships were moving. Humanity was responding again, because somewhere in the void someone was screaming for help, and always answered. They always would. The end.